I represent it.
Yo,
Are we on?
We are on, bro.
All right. Shout out to Ken, aka J Street Beast, aka Lightsaber, for that intro for the BeastCamp podcast.
He came in that intro quick.
Who?
Ken, like you
Yeah.
texted him,
Yeah.
and it came in like the next day.
I
next
texted
hour.
Ken. I was just like, hey, I just need an intro for this podcast. That's it. And then it was right on the money.
Boom.
Loved it. No edits or nothing.
Oh man. So what are we doing here? What are we?
All right. So yeah, I love listening to podcasts. I love talking. I love hearing people's stories, and yeah, I just wanted to put my own twist to it. For sure, do it with my friends and the people I look up to, and the people that really help me out with this journey and continually helping me. Format wise, I want to do it a bit different too, by making like the last part in the beginning and then formulating conversation from there, you know, because I love at the end, and I'm in some of the podcasts or some interviews, and they're like, yo, so what's some stuff you want to tell the listeners, or what can they take away, you know? And I feel like that's what is on everyone's heart. They want to share something to the world, but then you only got like 5 minutes, you know, so why not start with that? Yeah, and it just gives everyone a voice, you know. And sometimes with origin stories too, just flat out origin stories, like those aren't the people you're talking to like face to face, you know.
Yeah.
And there are some things like they're working on, or as I said, there's some stuff in their heart that they really want to share to the world that they feel like is benefiting them, and it could benefit to the world and to us, and even to us interviewing them. So I'm really interested to hear that, and I'm just excited because it just evens out the playing field. Like if someone just talks about hard work, that's number one, and then we ask like, okay, so why hard work? Why is that in your mind or in your heart? And then you'll hear their story from a whole different perspective, but with that solid just with that solid like point of keep working hard because I went through this, you know.
And
so
I feel like you don't get the full depth
Right.
of what they're actually trying to say when it's like, all right, 5 minutes, go. Like, all right, it started with the blah, blah, blah. You don't get that.
And to be real, like some people's origin stories don't really relate to us, you know. We all have really unique origin stories. It hits or miss, but I feel like when you hear encouraging words, you know, like you cannot not want to listen to it, you know. And then when you hear stories to back it up, yeah, you're just like, wow. The fact that I heard a part of him or her, and then with this like application point, I feel like it's something I'm really excited to just dive deep from the jump.
Using your origin as a flashback
Yes.
for what you're actually talking about.
Yeah.
I feel like what is that? That's Captain Marvel, right?
Yeah,
like
and I love movies like that. I love movies when they show like the ending or the middle first, and then you gotta, you know,
puzzle it back together.
Yeah, 2 weeks later, and then you gotta look for the clues, and then when it comes all together, you're like, oh, those are like my favorites. And or even like if the narrator is already the end result and is like, all right, this is like the story that happened, you know.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's just where I feel like the direction I want to go with this, and just give it a twist. I know there's a bunch of podcasts out there, and yeah, I feel like this is something that you guys would be interested in because of the different format, and we'll have a bunch of guests on here, and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, cause I feel like everybody and their mama, especially right now, has a podcast. But I think this is good because, like, you know, you're so influential. Our group, the Beast Camp, is so influential that it definitely gives a voice to, I mean, a different chapter, a different scene of the dance community and the life community.
I mean, that whole saying, like, it takes a village, you know, and especially for part of my journey, I can't wait to have like certain guests on the show that really help me out, even if it's like for one traveling, you know what I mean, experience, but just their presence and their encouragement really made me believe to move on, you know. And like if that person that maybe is in somewhere like in Costa Rica or in the Philippines that no one pays attention to, but was really that really made me like, man, I could go on, you know, their support meant so much. I just want to give them that type of platform to probably share to the world, and and just make that our conversation from the start, just like what we said.
That's really dope. All right, then let's get into it then. Let's figure this out.
The pressure's on.
So we know you. You're like, if you don't know us, then just do some research. Just type in Baby Tight Eyez. So we're actually gonna go into it real quick. Like, you already like. So what are some big things that you can kind of push, that you're working towards right now, that you're striving for in the present, that kind of, what's going on?
For a while, I've been thinking of 3 things that's been making me survive, thrive, and through all the hard times and good times, and to list them off. So, and the conversation can keep going, because we have like points to where if one point dies, we go to the next point. So that's one reason why I wanted to do the format like this too. So number 1 is to pursue creativity. Yeah. Number 2 is know yourself. And number 3 is have faith. Yeah. So those are my 3 points that I want to give to the world. So.
Okay, let's go deeper into it.
All right, now this is where it gets fun.
And that's it. That's the podcast. All right, peace out, everyone.
The 10-minute podcast. I love those guys. But yeah, so with the first one, be creative. I grew up being involved with like playing guitar. Even before I was dancing, I was playing guitar. I was part of the band. In middle school, like the orchestra band, I had the big baritone, and I was embarrassed because that was almost as big as me back in the day. You know what I'm saying?
That's Sherman's size.
And then I learned how to box, So, and then with my sister, my older sister, I learned how to do sports, And I still see that as creativity, and I'll explain later. But yeah, and then I got into dancing, and then through dancing, I got to meet people like artists. I used to go perform at a lot of open mics, so watching live poets, watching live bands, even other dancers, even just speakers in general, like really made me survive, because I grew up and like I had a rough childhood. It wasn't the worst, but it was pretty rough, like parents divorced, moving house to house,
I feel like if you live in Carson, it's going to be a rough childhood.
So yeah, like so it's just a great way to kind of keep your mind off of things, but it's great therapy, and I feel like with creativity, a lot of people get scared, especially if you're not a creative person, that you don't need to make it your career, like that shouldn't be your first thought when you're doing or pursuing creativity. Like you should just, like I look at creativity as like even how you rearrange your room, like, or how maybe you just want to go home a different route, or how you want to make your relationship with your girlfriend or with your friends like better, like that's how I view creativity. It's just doing something different, you know what I mean? And that's one thing that I want to really share to the world, that everyone is capable of being creative. That doesn't mean you have to be like a dancer or a singer, and even if you do, like you don't have to be the best at it, especially in the beginning. Like you're gonna do it badly, even this is our first podcast, like we're gonna do this pretty bad, like like so yeah, and it's just so therapeutic, like there's so much like even scientific like supporting, there's so much scientific evidence supporting it. Like when you create, it activates the part of your brain that simulates like happiness, so that's why like kids, when they create some crazy art, even though it looks like a piece of crap, like it makes them happy, and they want to show the world. And I think that's what matters most, is how it makes you feel when you create. But living in this society, like we want to share everything we do and stuff, and then it's not safe to really share it to the world because they could critique it and it's strangers. So yeah, we have to just go back and just create as like a therapeutic type of field, and this book that I really recommend to everybody, called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, the Eat Pray Love girl. She says one of this amazing quote that she says, if you're not actively creating something, you're actively destroying something. You know, and that could be like your job or your your relationships. And even with jobs, you know, like how do you like get promoted? You gotta stand out, you know. And how do you stand out? You have to be creative. Like you have to, you know, like show up to work on time, or you have to show up to work earlier and, you know, dress nicer, you know, like think of ways to make your boss happy, to make your coworkers happy. Like, to me, that's the mindset of creativity, you know. So when you meet someone that's a creative person, like every sentence or every part of their life is really interesting. You know what I mean? Like they just see the world at such a different point of view, and it just makes life so much more easier and to bear with, you know.
I think I want to touch back because you kind of glossed over it, but starting your creativity doesn't have to start with some sort of miraculous Mona Lisa type situation. It really can just be simply taking a different route home. Yeah. And so now you're creating different images in your mind because you've never seen a certain tree or a certain view or whatever. And that is just like the first like tiny pebble that thrown into a big giant mountain of creativity. And so simply easing into it, at least you're starting something. And it can definitely lead into a lot bigger and more, you know, aspiring type junk.
I mean,
not junk though.
I mean, it's like the definition of insanity, you know, doing something repeatedly over and over, expecting different routes, you know, or expecting different results, you know. But when you start to be creative, like, or just think of your life as a whole, like, you know, I have my morning routines. Like, I wake up, stretch, do some breathing techniques, do some, I already said stretch, like yoga, tea, I juice, you know, go outside, get some sun.
You do all of this?
Yeah, in the morning. It's like an hour.
I wake up and I stretch towards the sky and then I eat chicken. I don't know.
So, but then, like, every day I change the order, you know, because it gets boring. You know, if I really make it like I wake up and it has to be, you know, doing a yoga video, like, and then it has to be right after that, this and this, you know, like, it's like, I'm reading Jordan Peterson and he said, like, make a schedule that you like, you know, don't be a slave to your own schedule, make a schedule that you like. And again, you have to think creatively. And sometimes we're so scared to be creative because, you know, it even makes us look at ourselves differently, you know, like, what, like, I wouldn't do that. And that's the whole point. Why would you do the same routine ish for the rest of your life? You know, like, there's so much more to do.
Yeah. Nah, that makes sense. So that's the first one. That you have two more. Let's go into that second one. The second one was
know yourself.
Yeah,
this is a big one.
That's a big one.
I mean, I recently, and I knew, like, probably 6 years ago that I didn't know myself, you know. And when I realized that I didn't know yourself, and we don't, you know, every day we're starting to learn ourselves, reintroduce ourselves, and, you know, and that's something that's really a risky thing to do because, people get comfortable with who you are, and you are too, you know. But just the first discovery of, like, you don't know who you are, because I say that as in, like, when, you know, like, when you react to certain things, and I used to ask myself, like, man, why am I scared of certain things, like, you know, or certain situations? Why do I react a certain way, you know? And I feel like the answer is really inside of you, or in your past, or, you know, like in your childhood. And that's something that I learned too, was a lot of our childhood, we think is in the past, but we really carry it on, you know? And what I've been learning too, the first book that I read that my youth pastor gave to me was the realization that before, in Exodus, before they listed the 10 commandments, they said things get passed down from generation to generation, you know. And the book the book explained that even through your peers, you know, especially for us being leaders, you know, we may go have an anger tangent and get angry and kind of maybe not handle situations that it could have been better, but it would really scar our team members, you know. And then when they become leaders, their only piece of information of how to handle that information is what they went through. So we're passing it down, you know, and that's why it's such a big responsibility, not just on leaders, but for us, because yeah, eventually everyone does wants to like have kids or, you know, even somehow be an influence. Like you have to be careful of the stuff that you're unwilling, like you're not knowing of what you're doing or what you're passing down, you know?
Yeah.
And just that whole mentality, like, oh, I grew up this way and that's it, you know? And for me, like, I just don't want to live as a victim. Like, you know, this is the only way I'm gonna react to this situation or to this person, you know? So yeah, it's a heavy one.
I feel like one of the big things that I've found is exploration of like what your thoughts are or why you do certain things or your personality. Like a huge thing for me when I was like, I wasn't really trying to like discover or like learn about myself. I just happened to do it because I did a different activity, and I did that 16 personalities test. And I'm a campaigner. Shout out to all the campaigners. But doing that and then actually sitting down and reading through all this psychology studies about, you know, your personality does this, and this is kind of the reasons why. And for me, it was like I've never like put these, like, I'm like, oh, I do this. I've never put it into words, but like this is exactly what I do. And so now it's like, okay, I'm not so far out there. Like sometimes, like, you know, my girlfriend Sarah, she'd be like mad at me, but I'm like, yo, it's kind of what I do. It's kind of my personality. Now I can work to change that.
Exactly.
And I'm aware that I do this, but this is something that, you know, I've found out about myself, and I'm aware of it. And whether it's good or bad, you know, it's definitely, I think that exploration of why you do certain things is really key. And there's a lot of opportunity out there for you to figure it out. Read books, take exams, tests, that kind of stuff.
I mean, it sounds hopeful, but it's a very dark and scary place, you know, because you have to revisit like some trauma, or you have to revisit, you have to really ask those hard questions, you know, and then when you get the answer, it may not be something that you want to hear, or it may remind you of something, you know, but yes, it is a hard journey, man, especially because it hits home, and it really has such a hold on your heart of like, man, we really know what the right thing to do, but we can't because it's like years and years of like something holding us back, and we can just always say like, this is just me, you know, but in reality, like, is it you, or is it because of these situations, and is it because it's part of passed down from maybe your dad, or maybe not having a dad, you know, or maybe not having friends, or maybe not, you know, so those factors, a lot of those you would want to fill, you know,
and it helps to overcome fears too, that maybe might not, because sometimes we think, oh, I argue like this because that's just how I am, but also, you know, you can relate back to like, okay, so for me, I have a fear of heights mixed with water. If I'm jumping off something like the rafters, I'm okay. If I'm swimming in the ocean, I'm okay. But as soon as you put the two, and to me, it's like you have to like kind of like jump back. Okay, why am I like this? Why do I fear this? And is it actually valid? And you can start overcoming. When me and Jai were out in Africa, I jumped off some tree into a lake, but I was up there for like 15 minutes, bro. Like it's pissing my pants, bro.
It could be some silly stuff, man, and it could really like block a lot of social interactions, or again, it could even block a lot of like when you're raising kids, you know, like what if your kids, or you know, your homies that you're trying to raise up wants to jump off, you know, and you're gonna be that boring person, and you know, or man, so.
And you can like indirectly mold somebody else's to be like, oh, I have this fear now too, and you're like, oh shoot, I don't even know why I have this fear because I haven't explored it.
Yeah, man, especially in the street culture that we're in. You know, like we're crump dancers, and a lot of crumpers, especially in South Central LA, like grew up without father figures, you know, or grew up in broken homes, and in a sense, like we had to become that family. We had to become that father figure. We had to become that older brother. And, you know, I didn't know what I was doing, you know, and I was like messing up and making like, you know, all the stuff that I was doing was being passed down, and I had to ask where it come from. And it was even some of my teachers that I was like, yo, you know, and they didn't know it either. So, you know, it was a lot of mature conversations like, hey man, like, you know, I'm kind of, you know, struggling with this, and, you know, I'm not trying to blame you, but let's like really dig like where'd it come from, and, you know, so
push to fix it.
Yeah, fix it. And, you know, I feel like that's one thing we all need to strive for, is know ourselves before we try to like fix the world, you know. It's like that saying, like, clean your room before you try to clean the world, stuff like that.
It's like that Bible verse where it's like don't try to mess up with the speck in your own eye. Yeah. And or speck in somebody else's eye when you got a big old plank in your own. I can't even talk. It's all good. I know Bible verses. I went to college.
It's all right. I mean, that's the next topic. Oh man, yeah, this is good stuff, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're killing it right now. We in here. Yeah. And so then we went from so we started with
pursue creativity,
knowing yourself, and now finding faith. So I know a little bit about your history. We actually have similar degrees, but what to you, like, what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm not trying to say like everyone to be a believer of God or like of Christianity, but I just think just believe in something good, you know, and start there, you know, and I think you'll find your own path, and I believe like God will like will hear that you're pursuing something good, you know, because I think everyone universally can agree like what is the basic goods, you know, like just treat your neighbor as nice as you can, or like treat your neighbor as what you would want to be treated like, you know, forgive others, you know, if someone like messes up and stuff. Like if you see a homeless person, try to give them money. If you see someone needing help, you know, like those basic things that that's really emphasized in our faith, you know, and that's something that I feel like I missed because I was away from the church and being like pursuing like my relationship with God and really pursuing just elevating my faith, you know, and then kind of going out into the world, and just how it was pretty shocking of just how the basics were hard for people, you know, like really just like the stuff that I listed, like love, you know, the basic like thing we want to do as humans is to love each other, but I just saw how hard it was, you know, or how it was tainted of like, we would love you if I get something back, you know. And that's something that kind of, like I said, when you start to pursue it, you start to question like, okay, that's the definition of love maybe to everyone else, you know, but in our faith it's a more of an unconditional love to where like I'll love you, do something for you without the expectation of getting something back. And it's difficult, you know, because as humans, no matter what, like I would keep count. I'm not gonna lie. Sure. I'm not gonna lie. I would keep count if I do a favor, but just even the practice of it, you know, like kind of makes the meter go down and prolong it, you know, and eventually you'll get better. And that's the thing too, like we want to get better at loving. We want to get better at showing mercy, being graceful, like again, just the basic human things that I think people just need to have faith in, you know, like just have faith in there. And I believe, you know, because I come from Biola University, and one of my professors say like everyone believes in something, you know, even if they say they don't believe in God, like you believe that these couches are gonna hold us up, you know what I mean? And like you have a certain way of living that you believe in, you know, and I think start there, and I just think just start pursuing the good and keep pursuing the good, you know, because we need that. You know, the world is going crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we're
Didn't
in the
notice.
Rona area.
I
But
had no clue.
but yeah, I just think that's just so needed, you know, like right now, and yeah, and I miss it. I really miss. I think the key like phrase is like trying to get better at the basics, you know, not and kind of like bleeding into the previous one of like, oh, this is just how I love though, like. I don't know how else to love but this way, you know, like I will only tell you, you know, like the truth maybe this way. I will only forgive you the way that I'm comfortable with, like, but that's something that we could again like be creative about, you know, or like you start to know yourself and say, man, it's pretty hard to love this certain person but easy to love this person, you know. So
Yeah.
that's just something that I've been telling people is just like, man, like let's just pursue and like have faith in it first, you know, like because it's hard to do it first.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to be better at loving someone that's really not lovable.
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
And I think going back to like the unconditional side of things, it's like at the start of a relationship, it definitely takes a lot of work to like push, you know, such forgiveness, such love towards somebody. But over time, it's just kind of like any skill, you become better at it, and it becomes more comfortable. Like I look back to when me and Sarah first started dating, it was like, all right, you bought dinner yesterday, and I bought, okay, but I also bought like lunch 2 days ago, so is it your turn? And like now it's just like you don't keep track of that because it's become so like you have that faith, you have that trust that you know it's gonna come around between the two of us, you know, but that can go to anybody really. And so as long as you start kind of practicing and getting that comfort and in faith in humanity and in between, you know, people are gonna mess up.
Yeah, for sure.
You can have faith in that.
Yeah.
But
I have more faith in that now.
but it's kind of like our goal to not be the reverse side of that, you know. And if we're doing our part, then you know we have faith that other people will start doing their part too.
Yeah, I mean it's always hard to do good, you know. Like you'll get more crap for doing good. Like it's weird, people aren't comfortable with that. They're comfortable with everything falling apart.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
oh, that's just how it is. But when someone stands up, it's like a target, like, oh, that's something we can tear down now, you know. And yeah, man, I mean, just to get like a little like personal, that's one reason why I went to school like at Biola University to pursue a biblical ministries Bachelor of Science degree.
All of them.
all of that.
Those things.
And it's because like, you know, even, you know, people still use, you know, like the good, like I said, like for not good. And it really shocked me, you know, and that's one reason why it kind of put me away from the church, because it didn't really feel good, you know. But then I realized, like, were they pursuing it, or, you know, were they really in it, or did they have their own gain, you know? So, and there was a lot of stuff. I feel like a lot of my peers and our peers can understand that, like, you know, we start to get that self-righteous image, you know, and we start to think like, yep, I got God on my side, and da-da-da-da-da, you know, and it really broke my heart that yeah, something that saved my life really was really interesting, because, you know, we're different, you know what I mean? And we can't be put in a box. So I was like, man, I grew up with people telling me, like, man, go to school for something that's in demand, you know, like either a doctor, nurse, an engineer. And then I thought, like, man, there's a demand of like good, you know, like preachers, or good like pastors, or good like just people of faith, you know, that really went through it to share this type of message, and yeah, like not really cut corners and stuff, because it's such a serious topic, man.
Do you feel that I don't know what type do you feel like that same type of situation where leaders in Crump, and like, do you feel like there's the same type of situation in our Crump community as well, to where we look around and we got great leaders, but we might need more, or like the next generation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The torch always needs to get passed on. And we're always thinking of what to do for the next generation, and who can like lead it, but again, like, it's just such a serious thing that, it's just such a serious process, there it is, that they need to know from experience and from knowledge, and and coming from a good place, coming from a genuine, like, I just want this world to just be a little bit better, you know what I mean? And yeah, man, that's really hard. And I think, just to keep it simple, like I said, just have faith, man. Like, I'm pretty happy of like where my walk was at. Like, I really like went away from it for maybe like 3-4 years because I had my own bitterness and my own questions and stuff. But God didn't stop pursuing me, which was annoying sometimes.
For
but,
sure.
but yeah, I mean, it just shows that, like, there's something outside of there that's really on your side, and that really wants to pursue good. And that's one reason why we're doing this podcast too, is to shed some light and just have people just have something for people to believe in.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So where are you at right now on, I want to get into like the professional like side, like what, like if you're pursuing anything, but first I think, like, what are your current aspirations, taking in regard to all three of those? What are your big things that you want to be working on or pushing for?
I would love to do everything that I'm doing, just in a larger scale. I would love to keep creating, but with more people, maybe in a larger platform, maybe in a TV show, or we make our own, like this, start really documenting what's happening at the Beast Camps, like really show our trainings, our hangouts, like our vlogs, not really, I want to wait, but not wait for those big platforms to come in. I want us to keep working. So that's on the creative side. I love to collab with other people too, especially of other styles. I'm learning a lot of it myself too. And with knowing yourself, I mean, I love reading books. I'm reading a Jordan Peterson book right now, 12 Rules of Life, and just binging his interviews, and it's so inspirational. So yeah, and I'm again learning way more about myself, and I thought I knew myself, and he said in this book, like, that's one of the biggest no-nos is if you think you know everything, especially about yourself, and it's really hard, man, because when you get around people that says a different opinion about you, like, and you get kind of defensive, but what if they're correct? And man, that's such an opportunity to grow. So it's really prideful. I mean, it's really hard because, especially for me and all of my accolades, and I graduated from school, and from college, and being one of the best, it's very hard to listen to someone that maybe is not even on my level, but that's so silly to think about,
Yeah.
It's a factor, but it's a factor I could push aside. And yeah, for just having in faith, it's just starting with me, like, I'm going back to the basics of just the teachings of my faith, and really reconnecting with people that is in my faith, going back to my old church, and just, talking to people that I know is in my faith, but then also being a bridge, like in my graduation speech, the guy, he said, like, the real meaning of priest in the old language is bridge builders, and that just blew my mind, because we think of priests as like upright and like, no, like in the old in the original language, it's bridge builders. And because it was our graduation, he was like, we have to bridge the world from like our faith to people's faith, and one of the biggest things that I live by, which is from C.S. Lewis, my favorite author, he says that some people are not off, like, just because they're not a believer, like, that doesn't mean their arithmetic is 2 + 2 equals 185.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
their arithmetic of love, like what they think of love, is maybe 2 plus 2 is 5. So they could still
very
have
close.
very, very close, you know?
Almost can
Almost
even
there.
like look
Yeah.
just like
And
what you're doing.
yeah, and we could just build the bridge. And, you know, again, like, I think one of my biggest like traumas of like being in the church was like really like people forcing me to be a certain way or believe, you know, the way they believe. Like I said, we're creative, we all have our experiences and stuff. So yeah, man, it's really interesting to say, wow, like you're really not that far of what I believe in, and I could really be your friend. You know, I could
Yeah.
really be your, like, it does. You don't even have to convert. You know, like if you don't like, or you don't even have to. Yeah, I just want to be your friend. You know what I mean?
I think like the idea of that bridge builder is so many people feel, I don't know, like I've looked at other churches and I've been on, you know, that side of like trying to find a right church, and it really boils down to like what the pastor is like, because often it's like the pastor is trying to help the congregation be the bridge builder instead of being it himself. You know, I like that like idea of maybe like a hardworking, like
Yeah.
on the front line
Yeah.
type person
Oh, yeah.
with everybody
Yeah.
to really kind of join everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, you know, but yeah. So
man.
I think there's a lot of frustration in churches when,
Especially in America.
oh yeah, especially in America,
Yeah, I mean-
when you have this pastor who is, you know,
Closes his door to
Yeah.
people when it's like a crisis.
Yeah.
What? Come
Yeah.
on, man. That's and the sad part is that's the representation of us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we really have to take a stand and be like, yo, that's wrong. And you know what we're taught in our faith is not that, you know. Like
Yeah.
if it was us that had a building like that, we would have opened the doors, you know, like of course in a safe manner, but yeah, we would have done something, you know, at least like give to the city or something, like money, or, you know.
yeah, or like stay active.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like, you know, I was just on Instagram, and there's a church that the Cypher Spot partners with Impact City LA, and it was cool because they just did a really quick post where, you know, they're saying, you know, we still did our Laundry Love outreach, because they do that on the first Saturday, and it was like, even in this hard times, they were like, okay, we took the right steps to do it safely, but we're still being active, and we're still being building that bridge between our community and Christ.
Yeah.
So it's dope. But then you also see other churches that, well, you don't see them. You haven't
Yeah.
heard from them since this COVID started. Like,
Yeah, man. I mean, I just feel like it just starts with us, you know. And to answer your question, yeah, it just starts with me, you know. I mean, I see a lot going on in the world. I could get bitter. I could, you know, like kind of talk about them all day. But at the end of the day, is what am I going to do? And I know I need to get back to the basics. And I went through a lot, you know. And I want to filter it out and always going back to the basics. And that's something I learned about being creative. You know, as a dancer, we practice the basics more than anything, you know. So, yeah, man, I'm really excited for it. And yeah, I mean, my favorite thing, which may sound weird, but it's just really, like, yeah, building that bridge to the world. And if it's through creativity or through people's stories of them finding out themselves. And that's the biggest blessing, man, is when you are vulnerable and you share what you're going through, it always happens that whoever you're sharing that story to either went through it or is going through it, you know. And it's insane, man. Like, it's really insane how it works and how it goes together. So yeah, in simple terms, just be creative, get to know yourself, and have faith in something good.
that's really dope, man. That's really dope. Who do we have on the schedule for our next podcast?
On the next podcast, we'll have Yaya Vankova. Woo!
Let's go.
Yep,
Come on.
she's someone that, man, I can't wait to hear her advice and then the stories that comes along with it, because she's been through a lot. In my opinion, she's like the greatest girl dancer like ever, or in this lifetime, to do that many dance styles, be involved in the culture. Like, I don't know who else did that, you know. And to see it up close and see her trainings and all that and all the other stuff that she went through health wise, and man, it's really inspiring. So yeah, I just can't wait to hear her story, and then we'll have Rev share the next one. Yeah, and then let's see, man. I mean, I would love to have guests, and yeah.
Dope. Well, I'm down.
We did it.
We did it.
Ooh, and you guys did it.
You guys did
stayed,
it.
Thank
Watch
y'all.
the next one.
Yeah.
And,
share, like, subscribe. This is gonna be everywhere on Spotify, the Apple Podcast. I don't know what's that called. YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know any of them.
Yeah.
But
so
share it and follow, and hopefully we'll be doing these on a regular basis. We set it up at the studio, so it's ready to go whenever we got the guests.
Yeah.
And whenever I don't burp into the mic again.
Tell us, who do you guys want to see as guests in our show, and we'll make it happen.
For sure. All right, guys. Have a good one. Bye.